Hi, I've been asked if I could post a video about your final text-based project, and I decided to do it this way rather than through VoiceThread because I know a few students are still struggling a little bit with VoiceThread. So here goes. I haven't done this in a while, so we'll see how this turns out. The main thing is part of this class is kind of learning what it's like to live a creative life and what it's like to be a a playwright or a novelist or a short story writer or a poetry writer, and just to ask you to think a little bit about how that person lived, what made him write. And I mean, you could actually, if you were an English major, you could actually take a course, say on Robert Frost. I just read your comments about The Road Not Taken, and I did mention to one student you need to look up what Robert Frost said about his own poem. And I could go on and on about that, but I don't want this to be 3 hours, so I'm going to stop right there. But the first thing you need to do is decide, what you want to try to write. Do you want to try to write a short story? Do you want to write some poetry? Do you want to try to write maybe a scene from a play? I've occasionally had a student who's working on a novel and has done a chapter of their own novel for this project, which I thought was really interesting. And I'm guessing that probably all of you aren't in the process of writing novels, so you don't really have to think about that. But I want you to do something that you like, something that you enjoy. But I think the main thing that you need to do is you need to connect it to what you learned in the class. You can't just turn in, and I can never remember, so I'm gonna look at my notes right now. You can't just turn in, oh, now I can't find it, of course, your poems and just say, well, here are my poems. What you'll need to do is perhaps write, just as an example with the poetry. For example, you might want to write some poems in the style of a particular poet that you liked. Or you might want to just write your own poems about something, maybe something personal to you, maybe something not so personal to you, whatever you're thinking about at the time. But you need to connect it to what we've learned. And if you write, for example, if you write a short story, if you write an original short story, the part two of your paper, which is the narrative, needs to talk about what influenced you. What did you learn in the class that influenced you in your short story? For example, did you decide you wanted to really, a lot of you wrote about setting in the short story and in your novel. I guess that's what I'm thinking of, really, your novels. A lot of you wrote about setting. So perhaps you learned something about setting that made you think you wanted to write your own short story, that really the setting was really important. Because, sometimes you can read a story and it really doesn't matter where it takes place, and other times it really does. A Good Man is Hard to Find. I can't picture that story in Hawaii, for example. So, however, if you write a short story, like, for example, if you take Girl and you're rewriting it, say, from the point of view of the mother, or you're rewriting it from the point of view of yourself, or maybe your daughter. I know some of you have children. You don't have to say too much because you're taking a story that we read in class and you're using that. You'll want to say a little bit, for example, about Jamaica Kincaid, and you'll want to Google that and find, learn more about her. But I think whatever it is you decide to write about in that part two, you need to talk about, and I'm going to read to you, how boring, but I'm going to do it. Why you chose to create the work that you did, how you created it, what your inspirations were, more about the writer if you rewrote a work, and that's where if you did Girl, you're going to talk about Jamaica Kincaid, and a brief introduction to the work. So part one is the work you create, and part two is the narrative, and that's this part. And then part three, you're going to do a VoiceThread presentation where you talk about your work. If you wrote poetry, you might want to read one of your poems and talk about it. This assignment is pretty open, and I have students do all sorts of different things. But for example, if you wrote a short story, you don't want to just read the whole short story to us. And I do ask too, and I need to remember to do this, to have you put this in a discussion forum if you want. Sometimes people write things that are a little too personal. They don't want to share them. And that's perfectly okay. But and I was just thinking, if somebody has a VoiceThread and you really want to read more of their work, you could get in touch with them yourself. You can do that. Sometimes I send emails to the whole class. No, you don't see each other's emails. But if you want to read somebody else's, let me know and I'll put you in touch with that person. I will let the person know. I won't give out anybody's emails. I'm pretty careful about stuff like that. So anyway, I hope this helps. So again, the first thing you need to do is decide whether you want to write a short story, whether you want to write poetry, whether you want to write a scene from a play. Perhaps you want to take a scene from a play we're reading and rewrite that scene. I've never had anybody do that. I'm not sure that's the greatest idea. But certainly the fiction and the short stories, or even the novel, if you want to take the novel that you read and rewrite a scene, a short chapter, part of a chapter from that, that's fine. This is just a chance to give you the feeling of what it's like to be in the literary world and to be a writer. So I hope this helps. This is not my assignment. This class was originally taught by a brilliant instructor, professor, I should call her, Dr. Courtney Bailey Parker. Probably some of you know her because I know you're not in any way all freshmen. And she was kind of my mentor in terms of this particular class. And this is really her assignment. And she was really into theater, much more than I am. I think I'm more of a fiction person. And as far as the poetry is concerned, I love poetry. But I'll tell you right now, and maybe I shouldn't tell you this, but I'm not crazy about teaching it because I hate telling students that, well, this is a good poem, this is a bad poem. I think poetry is so perfect. I mean, so personal is what I mean to say, that it's a little hard to teach it. And I taught high school for a while, and maybe it comes from there because teaching at college is a little different. But anyway, I'm really careful about that. I don't ever want to tell you what a poetry means because there's certain facts in it. For example, the ball turret gunner, I just read your post about that, and I think there's some basic facts about when that took place. But what the poet is saying is totally how you interpret it. So I hope this helped. Now I need to upload it to YouTube, and then I need to, once it's on YouTube, I need to upload it back onto the news announcements. So what I would love to do is have you email me when you see it, if you see it. And if I don't hear from you, I'll probably send a little message. I just recently learned, and I guess I knew it, but I hadn't thought about it, that sometimes students don't see my news announcements because they've closed that window on their home page, their front page. So if I don't hear from you, I'm going to send you a little email, and I'm going to say, are you reading your news items? Because I do post things, sometimes I think too often. But each week, as I hope you know, I post a little thing telling what's due that week. But and I also post other things. I haven't posted anything in a week or two, but sometimes something will come up and I'll think I want to change something or whatever. So anyway, send me an email, tell me you got this, and I'm guessing what I understand about YouTube is that I can't do it till tomorrow. But I hope this helps, and I probably should do more of these because it's good to talk to you, and it would be fun to be in a classroom. We've had a lot of things in this class that I thought, oh, I wish we were in a classroom. It would be fun to discuss this. And gosh, I could talk all night. Some of you heard me say I live alone, and my cat doesn't talk back, so I could just go on and on. But I'll stop right here. This is enough. So let me know. And if you have any questions, I'm always here. Thank you.